I'm going to go recent. So, what was it? About a week ago, went to a independent bookshop in Armadale called The Leaf Bookshop. Driven past it a couple of times. I keep just getting recommended it on Instagram, so I just wanted to go check it out, see what it is. I liked the vibe of the building. It was a lot more cramped than I thought it would be. Found it a little hard to like not be overwhelmed. You know, it's like when you walk into Chemist Warehouse and there's like things are so high and the aisles are so narrow that you kind of go and you're like, I can't even see like a single book. I kind of got that vibe, just a touch, from Leaf. But then I think the selection was great, and I really liked the Australian part that they had. But yeah, so I walked around that and then was like, okay, I've been here for too long, I should buy a book. So I got How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kuang, who when I picked it up, I was like, why do I know the book? Like, I read the back of it at some point. And it was from her being the director for the Emily and like adaptive person for the Emily Henry books. So yeah, which I realised because the salesperson was like, oh, like you might know her from like doing the Emily Henry stuff. It's like, oh, that makes sense. And yeah, so I picked it up. It was kind of the first physical book I've read in a while. And I've been kind of reading like digitally or listening to them a lot just because I drive. So it was really nice to actually like have a physical book. I kind of have missed it. So definitely will do that. But then I started covering more, and so I needed to drive more places, and I really wanted like an audio book. So the next one I do, I might try to do tandem, because I really enjoy like physically reading it, but then also having the audiobook's just nice in the car if you can't be bothered listening to the radio people, or if they annoy you at some point, which happens a lot to me. But yeah, so what was it? So How to End a Love Story. So it's a romance book. I would classify it as romance, not general fiction, just because the romance becomes like the main plot and the main thing you're following. And so it centers on Helen Zhang and Grant Shepherd, or Grant fucking Shepherd, which I kind of loved. And so Helen is an author. She's Chinese ethnically, and moved, like, as first generation immigrant. So she moved with her parents when she was a child. I think like 6 or 7, maybe even 5. So probably just starting school. And yeah, so she kind of has that whole like different cultures, doesn't really know where she fits within the cultures. And yeah, she's an author. She's a best-selling author, and her series is getting adapted, which I think is kind of fun that I read this when Off Campus was coming out. It's like a big series that's like set in like late high school, early college. And then Grant Shepherd's a screenwriter, and so he's going to be on the screenwriting team that is adapting her series, and they're kind of connected in this tragic, like through a tragedy that happened in their senior year. And so you kind of get like the dynamics of it's now over a decade later and they're meeting again, and they weren't really ever friends or anything. They knew of each other, they went to school together, but they weren't really friends. But they've kind of been thinking of them because of, like, thinking of each other because of that tragedy. So, yeah, like how they have to work around that dynamics and then also eventually fall in love, obviously. That is the whole point of the book. But yeah, so the book does well in terms of dealing like with both of their like feelings, emotions, and also choices. Like you kind of understand each of them. It is your point of view, so you get to see both Helen and Grant's POV and their like struggles with various different mental health that is connected to the tragedy, but then there's also probably just a creation of the world they live in and their own personalities as well. But yeah, so the main star of the book is their like relationship and how it evolves from being virtually strangers but then also not strangers to co-workers to lovers. I feel like I should think of Hit a Rivalry when I say that, but I think of the Taylor Swift song, like the way she sings it. And also how they have to deal with their like past grief and how that will affect their relationship and what they what that looks like in the future. There's anything else? Yeah, so there's a like the reason why, so they're both on the screenwriting team. I'll say that afterwards. So not really a spoiler, it is the prologue of the book. It's not mentioned on the back. But the way that they're connected is that Helen's sister committed suicide by running into oncoming traffic, and Grant was unfortunately the driver of the car that eventually hit her. So it could have been anyone. It would have been anyone. And it was ruled a suicide, so it's like Grant faced consequences from that. But then he still has the consequences of, like, he, like, was in a fatal car accident and how that affects him and moving on with his life and how he lives it. And yeah, so a lot of their mental health struggles and talks deals with how, like, the outcome of that, of Michelle's death. I think that was handled really well. I think seeing Helen's grief, not only for herself, but for her parents, and then seeing Grant's almost PTSD in a way. Like he can't, the way the anxiety feels and the responsibility he feels from the accident, how that is portrayed and dealt with and talked about. I don't like saying dealt with, but how it's approached is, I think, really well done and nice for a book, even though in my mind it's still mainly a romance book, because that's kind of not on the back burner, but it's just like that is just who they are. Like, they are people who are falling in love, but they're also dealing with this grief and what happened in their lives. So that's why I think it's a romance book. But yeah, so this obviously has affected their lives a lot. And the book kind of goes, like, that's kind of why their relationship starts to evolve, because they've never talked about it. I mean, they weren't friends. Why would they really talk about it? It happened like 2 weeks before they graduated high school. So they kind of moved away and like went on with their lives. And now they have to confront it. Yeah, so then the book kind of starts with dealing with both of their choices and decisions to join the team and why. So for Helen, her grief about her sister is kind of a lifelong journey. It will probably affect her the whole way, but a lot of her books, or all of her books, have been centered around like the main female character losing a younger sibling in like a tragic way, and they're all in a high school setting, and then she's trying to start this new book and she can't finish it because she doesn't really know where to go. And it kind of feels like she's in a crossroads of how can she write another story that isn't a retelling of Michelle's, essentially. Well, not even Michelle's, of her own. And can she do that without feeling like she's almost leaving the past behind and leaving her sister behind is part of it. And then also how you kind of see how she's had to deal with her own grief, but also how she's protecting her parents from their grief and also their, like, the way it's affected her. She likes to hide everything from them. She doesn't want them to feel sad, to be upset, which I think is pretty natural. Like, you don't want to see your family members go through that, and if you know you can protect them, then you kind of would. I think I relate to that in terms of with Helen, and yeah, you can see how it's altered and changed their dynamic to the point of they don't really communicate, and her parents are not really in her life, just because she feels like she can't be fully open without causing them harm. Like, she doesn't want to tell them that she's sad because she broke up with her boyfriend, even though, just because of, like, the consequences of what happened with Michelle. And then, like I said before, for Grant, it's almost a PTSD, like he gets a lot of anxiety and guilt about surviving. Surviving, but also feeling like he's the cause, even though, like, from Michelle's, like, internet history and everything and what it was kind of rightly ruled a suicide. He still gets a lot of anxiety and struggles to fully let people in, which you can understand, like, as someone who kind of got thrown into that situation, and then the way his family reacted and her family reacted, and also the community is almost expected, like, he should just be okay. So then he kind of just had to be okay, and he was like the high school quarterback, I think. I don't know, he didn't seem that sporty. I don't think he had to be the quarterback. But anyway. So that, like, he was like the big guy, like the school president. Is that what they call it? We have a captain. I don't know. And like he, was like the main character in the school, and like was dating the head cheerleader and shit like that. And so it feels like he kind of had to, like, keep that mask on. Like, he couldn't break down and be upset and grieve someone he didn't really know as well. Like, he didn't know Michelle. He also didn't know Helen. And he didn't really know their family, so I feel like he didn't feel like he could grieve with them, and, like, they didn't want him to grieve with them, which is also fair. But it kind of kept him in this weird limbo of he's grieving someone he didn't know, and then feeling guilty about something that wasn't his fault, but then is also traumatized by what happened. Like, it was a whole mix of things, and then he's got to keep this mask on because he's the charismatic hot guy who is carefree and obviously doesn't have like a care in the world. Like, that's the character that he brings to his job and his life. So I think it was really great to see both of their POVs, because if you didn't have it, you have an unreliable narrator, but also you just couldn't get the depth of what they were feeling, and also when things started to change and like why things started to change and like what held them back and everything. Like, I don't know, it was like nice to feel like you felt like you knew them, and they were 3-dimensional. They weren't one color. This is who they are. I also kind of enjoyed that, like in like flashbacks and like when they were talking about the past, they both kind of had this like weird hyperfixation / what did I say, fascination about each other. So like within the past like 12 years, they've both like been thinking about what the other one's doing and wanting to have a conversation with each other, because in their life and in their world, the only other person who really knows what's happened is each other. And so I think that kind of meant they were open and a bit more honest with each other. So that was nice. I really liked them as a couple. I liked what they could do for each other, how they came together, the way that they did. It wasn't really a slow burn. The book's quite short. It's not like it was over whole series, but like they didn't rush it. Like you let them, yeah. Like the story didn't feel rushed. You weren't like, oh, like, and now they're suddenly in love. Like they kind of just came to each other, then came and actually met each other almost, because they didn't really know each other. But Helen didn't like him, which I feel like she knew she didn't not like him. She just didn't want to see him, which is also fair. I think her not wanting him to be on the writing table, also fair. But kind of glad he was. I think in a way, I did actually really enjoy the line where she was like, "You're not in the book." And it's like, yeah, she almost like purposely didn't put him in the book, which is kind of fun. Not fun, but like, I think it made sense in a way, and also as a reaction. Yeah, I have a little note here of I kind of wish the timeline was a bit more linear, because it kind of felt like you met them both. They were both like moving to LA. Well, Helen was moving to LA and Grant was getting the job and accepting it. Then they were meeting, then they hated each other, then they didn't talk for like a couple of weeks. I did enjoy those over a long period of time. That's a note. I enjoyed that. But yeah, so then they didn't talk to each other for a couple of weeks, and they went away to the retreat. Then they were kind of like, a little bit attracted, spent some time, had some talks, kind of saw that like, oh, he's protecting her a little bit. They started liking each other. And then they like, in that pseudo relationship, like, I don't know, you would say a situationship, but it was kind of more than a situationship, because they both wanted to date. But yeah, in their little situationship for the rest of the writing room, and then I kind of don't really remember why. Or like they went home for Christmas. That was fun. I enjoyed them going home together, like being on the plane, and like even having them maintain their relationship while they were in New Jersey. You could kind of see them both like, oh shit, like we could actually date. Like this, we haven't just like properly avoided each other. So that, I think that's probably my favourite chapters. Then when they were in New Jersey, and then going to Michelle's grave, and almost that kind of started like Grant being able to grieve and like have his feelings. And then, oh no, it was later, yeah, when there was a car accident on the road, then Grant had like his big panic attack, and that was when they kind of started talking about what actually happened. And I just wanted that to be a little earlier, because I felt like that was holding them back, probably on purpose. But enough was already holding them back from being together. I don't think you needed to also not let them talk about things. And like part of it was Helen's personality, right? Like she was written that way, to be avoidant, to not want to talk about things. But I know, it just felt like it felt like they changed a little, but then that part still held on for just a little too long for my liking. But yeah, the ending really brought it down for me. I was fine with them like breaking up, and then like when Helen's parents came and that whole situation and everything that happened, like that was fine. Like I understood that. As well later on, when they like properly broke up and like, okay, we're not going to get together after her accident, which would have been really hard for Grant. It just felt like they could have reconnected then, and it just felt like they should have, because then they did that and then they had to, I guess, grow on their own. But like, why? I don't know. It didn't feel like they weren't going to let the other one grow. So then you didn't really need to have them separate to allow them to grow. Well, it's quite nice. Having my elbow up. And then when they saw it, like when he had his whole little date in New York by himself doing all of Helen's favourite things, that's gonna annoy me. And like they saw each other on the train, but obviously that night was when she was talking to her parents, and I was like, why? I don't know. It just like the ending just dragged. Like I think I just was really feeling it being dragged out, and it felt like all these things were just like, oh wait, I'll say that later. But yeah, just like there was like a couple of times where it's like they could have resolved it. Then the final one obviously had to happen on the premiere night. And it's like, but did it really? Did it really have to happen 4 months later? Like, was the time skip even necessary? It didn't add anything. It didn't take anything. They could have done it that night when she left her parents' house. Anyway, and then they could have dated for 4 months and then gone to the premiere together. And yeah, I know, it just didn't feel like they had to separate. Like, normally sometimes you get it of like, oh, okay, like, they kind of like need distance, like find out who they want to be now that that chapter's essentially closing. But it didn't feel like they needed to be separated to do that. Like, it wasn't like Grant was gonna like hold her back from like being a screenwriter if she wanted to be, or to stay in New York. I mean, obviously didn't want her to like move back to New York, but like still, like, it didn't, if she wanted to, I don't think he would have been supportive, but they didn't need to separate to make that decision. Or even if they did, by the time, like, she'd already moved back to LA, hadn't she? Maybe she hadn't, I don't know. It just didn't feel necessary. And even like her conversation with her parents, I think if with the crash, like her having her big crash then felt moot because it didn't resolve anything, and it didn't have a big enough, like an adequate reaction from her parents, or Grant, that I feel like it should have had. Like, Grant was obviously distraught, right? Her parents would have been as distraught as Grant. They could have had some resolution then. But then instead she's kicked her parents out, said no to Grant, and is now alone. For no, like, with no support system except for Nicole. And I don't know, it just didn't feel it didn't feel necessary, and I felt like that was like a good, if you're gonna make a car crash, something that like obviously has traumatized not just herself but other characters in the book, then make it useful. It just didn't feel useful. It just felt like it, yeah, like dragged things out for not really any reason. Yeah, because even there was like the scene on like the last day of film, or like the last day of the writer's room or something, and like they nearly crossed paths, and I was like, why? But especially the ending. Like, I get Yulin Kuang is a screenwriter, and most of the book didn't feel too much like a screenwriter. Like, didn't feel too much like it was like written to be adapted. But the ending really felt like the last like two episodes of a K-drama. And like I say a K-drama specifically because they love to do like cliffhanger on the penultimate episode, and then the couple have like this big time jump at the start of the last episode, or like that ends like halfway through the last episode, then they get together, and then you have the epilogue and the happy ever after. And that's what like the whole last section of this book really felt like. Felt like the car crash would have been the thing. Then they had their breakup, the gap for the 4 months, and you saw what they were doing, and that would have been the first half of that last episode. And then the epilogue, and then they end up getting married in Ireland with his mum. And it was really like, okay, I can like picture this in the TV, and it annoys me when it's in the TV show, and it annoyed me now in the book. I think it was kind of sad because it, like, I really enjoyed it, and so then to like have that almost be the ending, like when you don't like the ending of a book, it really shapes how you think about the book, because that's your last impression. I was happy that they got married. The proposal scene in the library was cute, kind of. I mean, why did he have to visit before? They could have just done it then. Anyway. But yeah. I still really like them as a couple. And I like the way that the grief and all the mental health, like discussions and talking about it was handled, and you can really feel like it was handled with care. It wasn't shoved in to make it, like, it wasn't shoved in with no point. There was care and thought behind it. And yeah. So read it if you want to. If you like a K-drama, read it. I think it doesn't help that I'm also watching one, which I feel like will do it a little bit. And so I feel like that's why my brain's like thinking of like how it would be structured as a TV show and shit like that. I probably shouldn't swear. Whatever. But anyway, that was How to End a Love Story. I was gonna say How to Save a Life. How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kuang. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But yeah. Go Helen and Grant fucking Shepherd. Good couple. I realize you guys are unlocking lore. This guy over here, his name is Jerome. He's a little stuffed horse. Meant to be my cat's, but he's bought more as a gag. But yeah, new house, new position. New house, new position. We'll probably be on the chair next time, but currently the camera's on 2 containers with shit in them.